Hey everyone, welcome to Wednesday Words. It's actually on Wednesday this week. Yay. And it's at a decent hour. I must be organized. And that's because I have a special guest this week, thanks to Spider, God, the brain, StreamYard, because I can now have guests on my little show here. So um, we're going to be talking about the van life cookbook today. We're going to be talking about van life in general, and Justin Hughes is joining me. He is Smokey the Van. So I'm going to bring him in now. All
Hello.
right. Hi, Justin. How are you doing today?
Doing well. Staying warm out here in the Arizona desert. Let's see. I'm showing about 55 degrees outside right now. I guess it's
Oh,
slightly
dang
warmer
you.
than you back in New Hampshire.
Yeah, it's a
So
little warmer than it is
not
here
quite,
right now.
just a little.
It's it's in the single digits at the moment here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's warm in the house.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming and being the very first guest on my show here. I'm
Yay.
really excited about it.
Me too.
Um, so are you coming to us from inside your van?
Yes, I'm in my van right now. 55 degrees out is still a little chilly to be outside, but
Yeah.
I'm just hanging out in here. I got the heater on low, and I don't even need this warm hat anymore at this point. So, and like you, I have my coffee, so we're all good.
Yes, well, coffee is an important thing. And just in case Irina is watching this, Irina Rini gave me this cup, I don't know, like 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. It's a 7-Eleven cup. It was the first gift she gave me that was like not something her mom gave, got her through her. And I still use it like every day. So
Nice.
yeah. So I have questions for you. First off, I wanted to introduce you. I know Justin. Geez, I think we met through SCA.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. It was that
Yeah.
I wrote you on Facebook because you were coordinating something in the SCA, and I'm like, hey, I just moved to Southern New Hampshire. Let's talk. What's going on up here?
Right. So we had that in common, and then discovered that you rode motorcycles, and I like to do motorcycles.
Yep.
So I got to be an ornament on the back of your bike for a while, which was good. I'm hoping when you come back, I'll get to do that again sometime.
We'll make it happen.
Yeah. So you are now living in your van, and this is
Yep.
a choice that you have made. You are not living there because you've lost everything and are living out of a garbage bag. You have actually chosen to live in your van.
Well, it's a little bit of both. Yes, I did choose to live this way, live in the van full time. I had a different van before this one, and that was pretty much just a weekender. I did a 1 week long trip in it, but it was really basic inside, just a couple of essentials. But it was enough for me to decide, yeah, I really enjoy living this way. And so my now ex girlfriend and I both decided, hey, let's hit the road together. So we got a bigger van that was more reliable, the one that where I'm in right now. And we began building it through a New Hampshire winter because we lived in New Hampshire. And hey, what choice do we have? So we're about halfway done building it. And then we had an apartment fire. And the fastest way to get a roof over our heads was to finish the van. So, with the help of some friends, we made that happen in a matter of a month and been on the road ever since. So, the fire determined the timing, which was earlier than I was ready. So, I kind of know that side of things a little bit, but I was also somewhat prepared for it and have chosen to stay on the road since because I just love it.
Very cool. So you travel with Lister, right?
Yes, Lister's my cat. He's over there staring out the window. Hopefully, he'll make an appearance. He'll grace us with his presence.
Excellent. If you see the curtain jerking behind me, that's Mittens making her way in and out. That's my rabbit. She
Nice.
occasionally does guest spots.
Oh,
Um,
good.
so what is the best part of van life that you've run into so far?
It's cliche, but I have to agree. It's the freedom. Just being able to go where I want, when I want, and also not being tied down to a sticks and bricks home that I'm spending, excuse me, I'm spending way too much money on either a mortgage or rent or anything like that. Just being able to go where I want, when I want, and living cheaply. I don't pay a mortgage or rent, and this is an old enough van. I don't even have a payment on that. So
Ooh, nice.
that's pretty much what I enjoy the most about it. That and being able to escape a real winter, which goes kind of along with the freedom thing. I
Freedom from
choose to
ice
be in
and snow.
Arizona instead of New England. Yeah.
It's always nice to be able to go to Dorne when winter comes. I just finished watching Game of Thrones with Guy, so.
Oh, okay.
So what's the worst part? What's the thing that you've run into that really just drives you bonkers?
The worst part of it for me is this is where you get a little karmic payback on all of my warm weather comments. I don't like waking up cold. And I may be in Arizona, but it is the desert and it still cools off very quickly at night.
Yeah.
So, this morning I woke up and it was about 45 degrees out, about 55 in the van, which isn't bad. In December we had a couple of weeks where night temperatures were in the 30s. We even saw 28 one night. And now I have a propane heater in the van. I won't run that overnight while I sleep for safety reasons. But waking up in the morning, it's a bit chilly. Uh, if that's the worst thing about this life, I think I can live with it because I have blankets. I can turn on the heater, and then I just get on with my day.
Okay. So you work out of your van
Yes.
and you work kind of all over the place. And if I understand right, as you've been traveling, you've been incorporating some of your travels into your work.
Yes. So my day job is I'm a content writer for Fixed. That's a car scanner and app that tells you why your check engine light's on. On any given day, I could be writing about this is a PO300 code. What does it mean? What do you do about it? To everything you need to know about your brakes. And yeah, as you say, once in a while, they're interested in my travel stories. I got to write an article for them about the Pontiac Car Museum in Pontiac, Illinois. Ironically, the town has nothing to do with the automotive brand because they're out of Detroit. But it's a museum in Pontiac, Illinois, dedicated to Pontiac cars. So that directly ties in. And I've been working on a series about my journey I took in October all the way from one end of Route 66 to the other. I've gotten through, I think, 3 states so far, and I got maybe 3 or 4 to go.
Wow. On Route 66?
On Route 66, yep.
Okay. Now, you are obviously you have internet of some kind, but obviously it's not a landline.
Right.
So how do you connect to the internet? Are you using your phone, Wi-Fi, or?
All kinds of good stuff. In my past life, I was a computer and an IT geek, so I kind of go what some would say a little overboard with this. But yeah, normally I either connect to some kind of free Wi-Fi network. Like, let's say if I'm spending a night at what I call Chateau Walmart, the Walmart parking lot that lets me park overnight there. There have been times when I've been able to see and connect to Walmart Wi-Fi, their free Wi-Fi network in the store.
Okay.
So when I do that, I watch Netflix all night and I work for a while in the morning before hitting the road. So that's one way. I have not one but 2 cellular hotspots on 2 different networks, Verizon and T-Mobile.
Okay.
And usually at least one of those will give me a pretty good connection almost wherever I am. The reason they're on 2 different networks is Verizon is very, very good in the Northeast. T-Mobile's okay. You get down to the Southeast, T-Mobile rules, and Verizon's okay. And also different amounts of data available per month on the different ones, blah, blah, blah. And of course, none of that works where I am right now in Quartzsite, Arizona.
Okay.
There are so many people here for, the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous, the RV show, just so many events going on over the month of January that the towers just get saturated. So there is a local, remember the old internet providers like dial-up and things like that? The local
Yep.
company that would hook you up to the internet. There's a company like that here in town called Fastnet. It works similarly to an internet provider, except they have their own set of independent towers around the area that
Okay.
will give you wireless internet within 6 miles of the center of town. So because I need the internet for work, I got a subscription to them, and that's how I'm online with you right now.
Oh, excellent. Well, you seem to have a really good connection. I'm not having any lag or anything, which is awesome.
Yeah, I had to kick it this morning to make that happen, but I did it.
So what's it like being a writer on the road? I mean, you're kind of living the dream of a lot of people right now.
I really am, and I'm very fortunate that way. Yeah, it is a dream being able to travel, write. I split my time between my day job, writing about the car stuff, like I mentioned, as well as my own projects, my own blog at smokeythevan.com, various social medias, also as Smokey the Van. And I'm also recently restarting my YouTube channel, which has existed for a while. I kind of let it lapse the second half of last year, but I'm throwing some effort into it again. I figure with the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous having just happened, that's a good source of content to just sort of kick things off once again.
So you've mentioned the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous a couple of times, and I saw on Smokey the Van that you had done a presentation. And just for anybody listening, I am going to post the links at the end. We'll put them in the comments of the YouTube video so that people can go and find all the stuff. But you did a presentation or two for the RTR?
Yeah, I did one. It was funny you asked about how I get online before, because that is exactly what my presentation was about. It's about the various ways to get online on a very basic level for the nomad who's just starting out, which basically I broke down to, finding free Wi-Fi, like, Walmart parking lot, libraries are great, to using the hotspot that's built right into your phone, to a standalone hotspot, like I mentioned, the Verizon and T-Mobile that I've got. And then I took a ton of questions. My presentation was an hour, and then I hung around maybe an hour afterward answering questions. But and I was able to answer almost all of them, so I'm pretty proud of myself for that.
That's pretty awesome. And
Yeah,
what was the crowd like?
it was great. There were maybe 100 or so people there, which is
Wow.
a larger crowd than I've ever spoken to before. But it went off amazingly well. They were really nice. They were good. They asked me a lot of good questions, and it was great. And it's kind of surreal for me. I mean, I've only been living on the road full time since the fire happened last March, so it's been less than a year, and yet here I am being asked to share things that I know with new people. I still feel like a new person. But here in Quartzsite, I've met a lot of people who have been doing this a lot less time than I have. So I suppose maybe I am one of the veteran experts at this point. I don't feel like it, but I do know things. Happy to share what I know.
I think one of the things that I'm getting from the contact that I've had with the HOWA group, and that's the Homes on Wheels Alliance,
Yeah.
And a couple of the van life groups that I joined because of you, and the cookbook, was that people either make it or they don't make it. So if they go past a month, they're kind of considered, now they're part of the community. Whereas if it's, if they go out and if they're going to fail, they're going to fail quick.
Yeah.
Because of, you get to know that fairly quickly, because you either can live in a small space or you can't. And I mean, a van is a much smaller space than even a tiny home, which is what my experience has been with. So, I mean, you're pretty compact there. I know that on YouTube, they just posted a little tour of your van.
Right. postcards from Terry just did a van tour of me and my van at the RTR, which is pretty cool. I got to shoot a proper one sometime. I just haven't gotten around to that yet. So go watch hers for now.
I will, again, we'll post links to that at the end afterward because I want to share them with everybody because
Mm-hmm.
they were really cool. And the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous is really big. For those of you who are SCA people who found me through the SCA, you know, we do Burqa, and some of the other of you know about the Flea. Well, this is the van life version of those two things. It's got, how many people were there this year? Did they have a number for you guys?
Because there's no registration, people just walk in and out. It's really hard to keep track of. But yeah, well over 1,000 in and out for sure. Not all at the same time because people filter in and out throughout the week. Plus, this is a new version of the Rubber Champ Rendezvous because it used to be a camping event. Think more like Penzig or something like that. This is literally van life version of Penzig.
Okay.
And it used to be camping and everything together. Well, the event grew too big, and it was taking place on BLM, Bureau of Land Management, public land. And it grew to the point where they're going to need to start getting permits and all kinds of fun stuff because it had just grown too big. So now the way it takes place is the event itself happened at the Quartzsite Town Park. They just sort of took it over for a week and had all the usual stuff there except the camping. And they just encourage people to go camp on the vast amounts of BLM land surrounding Quartzsite. So, and it went well in the, there was a small gathering and a lunch for the volunteers and the speakers and everything immediately after the RTR. And in that presentation, the mayor of Quartzsite just immediately said, "Hey, you're welcome to come back next year. This was great." So the mayor was happy, the police chief was happy. So I think we know where RTR 2023 is going to happen.
That's wonderful. It sounds like it went very well. And I know that they have, I saw it come up on the HOWA group that they have they recorded a bunch of the lectures for those of us who.
Yeah, what you're seeing there, I think, is the online RTR, which is in progress right now. Online, because there was no RTR in 2021 because of the pandemic. So they switched it to an online format with a lot of the classes and everything else that would have taken place in person happening online. And people like that enough, myself included, because, you know, how am I ever going to get to Arizona to actually attend an RTR? In that life, it wasn't going to work. So I was still living in New Hampshire at that time, and hey, okay, I could do this online. That's pretty cool. I did watch a few of those. I don't think very many of the classes at the in-person RTR got recorded. I'm pretty sure mine did not. I will be making videos about that topic. Shameless plug. But, but yeah, not a lot got recorded, but yeah, that's okay. There's still a wealth of knowledge out there.
I seemed to remember that the one that I was interested in, which was the kitchen tools and the tiny kitchen fit out, was recorded because I actually made plans. I'm going to go and watch it when I have time.
Yeah, that was one of the few that was explicitly planned to be recorded and then posted as part of the online RTR. So yes.
Yeah, and I think that's great because, of course, it goes right into mine, and I'm very excited. I have to admit, there's that little tiny spark inside me that's hoping that the gentleman who emailed me regarding, responded to my query for publishing the Van Life Cookbook is watching. That's a shameless plug for me, too.
Hey, we're allowed to make shameless plugs for ourselves. It's fine.
Absolutely.
This is your channel.
It is. And so last week I attended a what did they call it? A summit. It was a StreamYard summit. It was a 3.5-hour extravaganza online. And they had speakers come in and talk about StreamYard, which is the program that I use to connect to YouTube so that I can do the split screen stuff like we're doing now, and I can share my screen and things like that. And so when
don't mind me, I'm just turning my heat off. It's getting hot.
I may be doing that in a minute myself. but where was I? God, my
StreamYard Summit.
StreamYard Summit. There we go. Um, they were talking about how every time you do a podcast, it should be sponsored by somebody. And if you're just starting out, like you are, like I am, you don't have sponsors yet, you should sponsor it yourself. So today's podcast is brought to you by the upcoming van life cookbook, tentatively named Eat Well, Cook Small, Live Large. So there we go. I gotta do my thing.
There we go. Do the Price is Right sort of like,
We'll see if I can get this. Ta-da! So the new things that StreamYard has put in, we have the ability to put in background music and some other things that they just added in. So, which is kind of neat and handy and good. Although I did make my opening and closing credits elsewhere. I used Canva and put it together there. So with all that, I'm going to bring us back to the cookbook because I wanted to talk about that. So for those of you who may not know, Justin is the reason that y'all are getting this cookbook. he was out moving out and doing his thing in the van, and we were talking about food. And he said, "Oh, I don't know how to cook." I said, "I can teach anybody to cook. I can do it in email." And he said, "You should do a cookbook about that." And I went, "Oh, yeah." So it's his fault.
It's my fault. You're welcome.
And that led to me sort of pulling things together. And I had originally assumed that it would be put together the same way that I did the Reenactors Cookbook, which was that I was going to self-publish it and put it out that way. But as I started writing it and contacting the people who are involved in van life, what I discovered was, first off, there's a much larger need for it than I originally thought. It's a very timely idea. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But that also, I decided on a whim that I would send out query letters to some of the publishers, and I have gotten responses. I have one big publisher that's going over my proposal right now, and I have two smaller publishers on the back burner if the big one doesn't come through. And in case they're listening, they know they know that I was doing this because they were like, "No, you want to get in Cabela's," and because the idea is that when I market this thing, I want it to go out to the people it's intended to get to. And those of you who are involved in the van life spend time parking at Shea Walmart, Cabela's, Bass Pro, and a couple of other places. And all of those places carry books. And I'd like to get the book marketed in those places. And I can't do that with a tiny publisher. I need one of the big publishers to do it. And so that was kind of my goal. But it was a Hail Mary. I threw the dice. I figured, why say no for other people? I was not expecting to get a response. So it was very exciting. And this just went from a cool project like my first one to, oh my God, this could be real. Luckily, it's about 3/4 finished at this point. The writing part. I still have a lot of testing to do, and that's something that I'll be starting. I'm doing my own testing here at the house. I actually have exactly the same one burner stove that Justin does, and I will be using it on my kitchen table to test out the recipes.
Yeah, I think pretty much everybody in van life has this same butane stove. In fact, I'm even using mine as a prop right now to lift my iPad up enough for a good angle.
I use a box.
Because everything has multiple purposes in the van.
Exactly. Everything has to do, and that's one of the things that I've been dealing with in writing this is talking about, in specific, the kitchen. Obviously, I'm not living in a van, but I understand tiny kitchen stuff because I've done it. And because when I do reenacting, I basically have to do a tiny kitchen because there's only so much gear you can bring in a trailer, and most of it is tents and armor. I have no room for a large kitchen setup. So I'm kind of looking at that. One of the things that I really am stressing in this cookbook is the idea that cast iron should be a part of the van life. And the reason for that is that it gives you an oven, which you otherwise wouldn't have. And so I'm in the process right now of testing out a bunch of recipes, everything from picking up Hot Pockets at the 7-Eleven as you're driving through and you want to cook them and you don't have a microwave. So what do? Well, the answer is that you cook them inside your cast iron. You take tin foil or a trivet if you have one, a metal lifter so that it can
I need to get one.
withstand
Yeah.
heat, and you put it inside your cast iron. If you don't have a trivet, I make little tinfoil balls to make
Oh,
a flat so it's up off. And then you put the Hot Pocket on top of that, and that lets the air circulate around it. And it basically turns your cast iron into an oven. And it works just as well on the stovetop as it does over a fire or anything else. So you can do a frozen pizza as well, but you do it slightly
I have
differently.
done that.
Instead of
Hmm.
doing it in the cast iron pot, do it on the lid.
Hmm.
So the
Yep.
way that you would do that is you take the lid, you turn it upside down so the handle part is down, and you put it on your burner. And if it doesn't fit right because of the handle, you can actually get these little crisscross things that are for lifting the lids. You can put that on top of the burner and then put the lid on top of that. You put your pizza on there and then you put the body of the pot over the top, and it makes it into a pizza oven.
Yep. Can
So
confirm. I've done it.
it's so cool. So what
Mhm.
recipes have you done? Um,
So far, I have done the sumptuous sausage and pasta, uh, which was very, very tasty. Um, it was kind of sort of like what you actually wrote. Well, in your instructions, you did say, you can use whatever veggies you want. You can use fresh veggies. You can use something from a can, just whatever works. The sausage ended up looking like, just these meat wad chunks instead of looking pretty. But hey, they tasted good and it all went to the same place. And that's really the key. Everything tasted great. The only other issue I ran into is I ended up with about twice as much food as I intended. So one of my campmates ate extremely well that night
well,
because
that's
you can't
not
let it go to waste.
necessarily a bad thing.
No, not at all. It's a great, the best way to a man's heart is an upward thrust between the second and third rib. But,
Stomach comes
food is
second.
good too.
So one of the things that I've been struggling with, of course, as a writer and as a cook, is that the smallest number of people I've ever. Sorry, my rabbit is thumping at me. Why are you thumping at me? Don't thump at me. Thumping is rabbit swearing, and I don't know why I'm getting sworn at. Um, um, I'm used to cooking for large. My family is five, and this is the smallest we've ever been. 5 members. Normally, I mean, we had at one point like I don't know, 14 or 15 people living with us.
Oh,
So
wow.
we've always had big numbers, and I have zero problems doing that. Um, I was discussing doing an event this summer with somebody doing like a little mini, like a Ren fair, but just as a presentation as opposed to a walk around and do stuff, where I would actually cook the meal and people would share it and get to eat it. And so the organizers were asking me, well, I mean, we have a full commercial kitchen. Would you be able to handle cooking for 100 people? And I'm like, in a commercial kitchen, I could feed as many numbers as you want. I
Mm.
I'm used to cooking for 100 people over an open fire, which I will totally do if you want. And so that led to some interesting discussions. Cooking for 100 people or 200 people is easy. Cooking for two is something that I'm really struggling with. And some cooking for one is almost impossible. So
Mm.
this is where my testers are coming in, and I'm loving the feedback. You're not the only person who's testing recipes for me at the moment. I have a couple of others, and um, the feedback that I'm getting is that the food is great. I have to pare it down, and that's what I have been doing. I've been cutting down the amounts and making it work, and it's like I can.
Although, the thing you could do is say, use these quantities and you'll have enough for two. Cut all these quantities in half, you'll have enough for one. So you don't necessarily need to change the recipe as written. Just tell us how to alter it for one or three or four or whatever.
Well, the problem that I have with that is that a lot of times when you're cutting a recipe in half, you're not actually cutting a recipe in half physically. So,
Hmm.
for
Okay.
instance,
This
the
is why you're
sauce.
writing the book and not me.
Right. And this is where the kind of cooking I do actually comes in handy because I understand the process of reducing or in beginning a recipe because you don't just do half. I want you to think if you put a quarter teaspoon of salt into something that's a serving for one and you're serving eight, would you put 4 teaspoons of salt into it? No,
Mm,
because it would be too much. So
right.
you have to kind of look at a lot of different aspect. So when I small things down, I have to take that into account. But even more so when I miniaturize these recipes, I have to make sure that they're not going to dry out while they're cooking or be too wet. I have to make sure they're not going to scorch in your pan. Um, and if you're using a big pot and you're only making something really small, is it just going to be like a pool in the bottom of the pot? So I'm playing with a lot of different things. But yeah, the only feedback I've got that's been negative so far has been that I really need to cut down the size. And I really think that's important, not just because the recipes should be for one and two, but because not everybody, you have a fridge and a freezer,
Right.
but not everybody does who's in van
Hmm.
life.
True.
My understanding is a
Sometimes a
lot of people
cooler is
have,
all you.
right, that you have either a fridge or a freezer, but some people don't even have that. They have a cooler and that's it. And so you have to take that into account. How much leftovers you're going to have laying around? How much fridge stuff can you keep on hand? I don't
Not
have
just
any
for the amount of
problem.
time you need to keep it, but also just how much space you have, because space is limited.
Exactly. I mean, I can't expect people who are living van life to run out to Costco and buy a 48 pack of salmon in cans because y'all aren't going to be doing that. Unless,
If
of
I did
course, you
that,
could.
it would fill half my van.
Exactly. Although, from what I understand from listening to some of the Howa people, that there were a group of people who got together and went to Costco and then split stuff out when they got back to Quartzsite.
That is a smart way to do it if you can. Then you get the discount and you get the stuff without needing too much stuff.
Right. So those are options, but they're not necessarily options that everybody can take advantage of. And I'm trying very hard to keep that in mind as I go through stuff. A lot of the foods that I'm suggesting you can use fresh if you have them. If you happen to be traveling past somewhere and they have one of those wonderful farm markets and you want to pick up everything fresh, go for
Yep.
it. But here's how to do it in the canned things that you're going to get at the convenience store outside the gas station in Yuma.
Actually, Yuma
And
is civilization. Quartzsite, not so much right now.
so talk about like how many people live in the area.
I think the official population of Quartzsite year round is something like 3,000 or so. And during the summer, this place is pretty much a ghost town because it gets so hot. 110, 120 degrees is normal during the hottest part of the year. I'm not going to be here then. But many, many, many times that many people descend on the place for a lot of the events that go on here, like a massive RV show. The RTR is happening here now. There's Quartz Fest going on right now, which is a big amateur radio camping event taking place like 3 miles down the road from me. Just, I mean, you can see why I'm here, right? It's got all my interests. It's got off road motorcycling, hundreds of miles of trails in the area. But
It
anyway,
sounds fascinating. I mean,
it
it
is.
sounds amazing.
There's something for everybody here, I think.
Um, so I'm looking at the time. How you good for another like 15 minutes or so?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Um, what's the community like there? I mean, when you're living in your van and you're living your best van life there, I know you met people along Route 66 and
Mm-hmm.
what's it like?
It's interesting. I mean, it can be lonely at times. But there are ways you can choose to make it not lonely. After my ordeal on the East Coast, I decided, well, you know what? I'm free. I'm going to fulfill my lifelong dream of a cross country road trip because I'm perfectly set up to do it. And I could have just done that alone and just chosen my route, gone at my own pace. But then I met a group on Facebook who was planning to do Route 66 from Illinois to California. I thought, what better way to cross the country for the first time? So I hooked up with them and did that, and made some good friends along the way. Traveling together was fun. And then when we got to California, the final couple I was traveling with, they've been to California, so they just bailed right down to Quartzsite. I went on to the end of Route 66 in Los Angeles and stayed with a friend in LA for what turned out to be a month while I was getting my van worked on and fixed and everything, and riding motorcycles up in the canyons and all that good stuff. And then Quartzsite was an afterthought for me. It's like, okay, I'm on the West Coast. Let's see, I'm 4 hours from Quartzsite. I guess I should go see what it's all about. So I told this couple that I knew was in Quartzsite, and they said, here's a Google Maps pin to my location. Come camp with us. I said, okay. So I came here and I met up with them, as well as this other woman I met way back in Ohio, completely independently. We formed the Air Force Museum together shortly before she hit the road. And they were all camping out here. So I joined them, and there are others who have come and gone in the meantime. But yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, the community aspect is what you make of it. There are some people who will just invite people to come create a community. On YouTube, Adventure Van Man, he just put his location out there and said, hey, come camp with me or just come visit. And I did go visit him because I've been watching his stuff for years. And it was good to meet up with him. And he had quite a fun little community set up, nights around the fire. And I mean, we have that too on a smaller scale. But yeah,
Wasn't there someone called the Lit Cactus?
The Lit Cactus, yes. So the Lit Cactus has become a bit of a fixture in Quartzsite this year. So back in the fall, this guy Patrick, he just came into one of the long-term visitor areas, the same one I'm camped in, and he set up his camper, right next to this pretty cool-looking cactus. And all he did was he just sort of, he threw some lights on it, and he put the location into Google Maps pretty much as a joke. And he just popped on the local Quartzsite groups and said, hey, I'm having a campfire. Come on over. And it has just exploded into something way bigger than him. And just gatherings and such. The Lit Cactus, as of the end of 2021, he was told, was the third most searched place in the United States on Google Maps. All because
That's
he threw some
amazing.
lights on a cactus and put it on Google. But yeah, he has gatherings frequently out here. Sometimes there's a theme to them, like Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, upwards of 100 people hanging out there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and other times it's a much smaller crowd, which is kind of what I prefer. People come out there and play music. I've brought my drum out there. And then just general hanging out, socializing, meeting people. I've made some good friends who I've met just hanging out at the Lit Cactus. And it's a good time.
That's pretty. It sounds really amazing.
Mhm.
Um, it sounds like there is good community, but you have to be able to reach out for it.
You don't have to reach out very far. It's there if you want it, but you do have to be willing to put a little effort in. I mean, appearances aside, I'm more of an extroverted introvert than anything else.
Yeah.
So I can be good in a crowd for a while, but then I have to retreat to my own space. And fortunately, there is plenty of space for that here.
So you have your home with you wherever you go. So
Yeah,
when you are done with socializing, you can always just go home and you never have to drive to get there because it is there.
exactly. Now, the Lit Cactus is a quarter mile from where I just happen to be camped. Sometimes I take the motorcycle down there because it's just easier to carry a chair and a drum and whatever. Sometimes I just walk it. New Year's Eve, I definitely walked so that my home would be within stumbling distance.
Excellent.
Hmm.
So it sounds like you're doing really well out there.
I am, yeah. I can't remember being this happy pretty much any other point in my life. I'm making plans for the next year and beyond, but I have found, for me at least, the key to making plans in this life is don't plan too much. I have the general concept of well, this past year I've been to three corners of the country. I have not yet been to the Pacific Northwest, so I need to finish. I need to go up there. From there, it's somewhat variable. One of my dreams since I was a kid was to do a trip across the U.S., then up to Canada, and then cross Canada, which would be amazing. So I I haven't missed that dream yet. I'm just on a several month pause while winter hits up north, which is fine.
Yeah, you
But
don't
I
want to
could
go
still
through it right now.
no way. But I could still go to the Pacific Northwest, and then of course it all depends on if the border is open or not, or what that deal is.
Yeah.
If I can get into Canada, and then if the border remains open long enough for me to get all the way across, or if I have to duck back into the States before I get all the way there. If I can't get into Canada, well, there's a lot of other places to visit. Yellowstone is among them. Um, I wouldn't mind going back to Sturgis, South Dakota, sometime outside of Bike Week, because I was there for Bike Week in 2019, and there was some amazing roads to explore there. And I would enjoy it much more if I wasn't stuck in traffic behind 250,000 Harleys. So I could go enjoy those roads on my own. And
Right.
also, since I have an on-road, off-road motorcycle, I could see what kind of trails there are to explore, or dirt roads even.
Excellent. Are you thinking of heading back towards New England at any point?
At some point, I do have a storage unit in New Hampshire I still need to clear out and deal with. That's kind of my last tie there. And of course, I have a lot of wonderful friends there. If my cross Canada trip does happen, my end goal is going to be Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, because I took a motorcycle trip there in 2013.
Ooh.
Absolutely loved the place, and I didn't get to see half the things I wanted to because I didn't have the time. So that problem's solved. As long as as long as I'm within, as I don't stay in Canada more than 180 days, I'm good.
Right.
So as long as I get there, and then I believe the ferry to Maine is supposed to start running again in March.
Ooh.
Which
Okay.
means I could come down the rest of mainland Nova Scotia, explore that because I've never been there, and then just take the ferry over to Maine, and then, hey, there I am back in New England. I'll do the rounds, go visiting. Either way, I plan to come back here to Quartzsite for next winter.
Sounds like you have some awesome plans, but they're flexible enough to let you enjoy the freedom that you so have flourished
Oh
with.
yeah, I
I'm
love it.
I've been watching you, and you have lit up. I mean, in the past year, you have.
It's the tan from being in the desert.
Oh, okay.
No, I am doing much better now than I was, say, 6 months ago, for sure.
Yeah. It's good to see you. Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing everything. If you get me links, I will post them in the comments where you can do it of the YouTube video, which should be like in 2 minutes available.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming on. And when you come back to New England, we will have to get you here, and we will have a little cookout. Maybe we'll do another show.
That sounds amazing. We could have a cookout with recipes from the cookbook.
There you go. See, we got it.
It's all about the marketing,
Thank you again. And I'm
having
going to pop you back into the green room and just hold on for a second while I close the video down. Bye, Justin. Thanks again. And thanks to everybody for listening in today. I really appreciate it. It was great talking to Justin. And, keep an eye out for the cookbook. I will let you know if it's coming out via a traditional publisher. It may have a slower timeline. If it ends up being through one of the smaller ones or self-published, it will probably come out a little quicker. So I will keep you up to date on that. And as always, if you want to be a test cook for the Van Life Cookbook, if you are doing tiny living in any way, shape, or form, contact me via email, and I will happily share some of the recipes with you if you are willing to send me good feedback afterward. And don't forget to subscribe, and like is, I don't know, somewhere down over here. Thanks a lot, guys. I will see you next Wednesday.